Yo, 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 back again. Math by the Moon here. Today we're going to look at multiplying with complex numbers, operations completely with complex numbers that would involve multiplication. So some words that are going to come up that you probably already heard of: distributive property, FOIL, if you've ever heard of FOIL. So let's do some math. All right, so again, don't forget it. I squared equals -1. Like I said, it's probably going to haunt you. It's probably going to haunt you. You better remember it. Here you go. You might want to pause it and jot some of this stuff down. If you don't know FOIL, it stands for first, outside, inside, last. And if you don't know FOIL, that's okay. You don't have to. It's just there in case you remember it. I just teach it more like distributive property. If I give it to one, I give it to all of them. And that's kind of the way I go through it. So write that down. We're going to multiply. The other thing is we're going to take care of exponents first. Think of PEMDAS. You know, if there's an exponent out there, we're going to have to deal with that first. The first problem down there you can probably already do because of what we did in the last little video lesson. So if we distribute, we get -24i plus 4i squared. Okay, and then we got to simplify, right? We have to simplify our power of I. I squared equals -1. So this would be a -4 then. And remember, I don't really like leaving it like this. I'd much rather have my real part first than my imaginary part. So this would be -4 plus 24i. And that's oldie but goodie. Example B here. So you got two options here since it's all a multiplication problem. I always put this one second because I think kids will do this. They'll do this thing where they go across all 4 of these terms and they're just kind of whacked out of their mind when it comes to that. You distribute in this problem to the quantity immediately to the right. You don't have to push it all the way to both quantities, okay? And I mean, usually in class, I'll put up like 2 times 3 times 4, and I'll say, do you do 2 times 3 and 2 times 4, or do you just do 2 times 3? And everybody knows the answer to 2 times 3 times 4. They all know that it's 24, so you don't do 2 times 3 and 2 times 4, right? You just do it in line. So here you just do 2 times the first quantity. And I'm going to beg to hold off on that because multiplication is commutative. I can do that if I want, but I might consider doing the binomial multiplication first. Binomial means 2 terms. I might consider doing this part first. And this is where you might need your FOIL definition. You take the first times the first and the outside times the outside. To me, it looks like distribute the 9. And then the inside and the last. And to me, that looks like distribute the -2. So I tend to call it distributive property. So it's going to give me 4 terms. A binomial times a binomial is going to give me 4 terms. The first one times both, and then the second one times both. Okay, first one times both, second one times both. And not to mention 2 times 2 gets you 4. So if you're ever questioning a binomial times a binomial, what am I going to get? You're going to get 4 terms. Now it might end up 3 in the end after you have like terms and such, or even 2 with complex. But regardless, you're going to get 4 terms expanded all the way out. So I'm going to drop this 2 down. And I'm just going to multiply it all the way out. Don't lose your parenthesis yet because it's still 2 times the answer to all this. So it's -36. 9 times 7 is +63i. And then I'm going to do -2 times -4 would be +8i. And then -2 times a +7i would be -14i squared. -1. I squared equals -1. So I know that that's really going to turn into a +14. okay? So now I'm going to combine some like terms inside here and hopefully try and get this thing to look a little bit cleaner. So 63 and 8 would make 71i, and negative 36 and 14, 36, 26, negative 22, and that should go first. And I still have to distribute my drop down 2, right? I'm letting that 2 ride. Remember how we did it with square roots and cube roots? We kind of just let this guy on the outside ride until the end. So we've ridden it long enough, now we can distribute it through, and we would get negative 44, negative 44, and plus 142i. Okay. I hope I did my math right because I'm in my head. In my head, in my head. Negative 44, positive 142i. All right, we're cool. So this next one here, this is where kids typically make huge, I call it the algebra atrocity. They just want to take that exponent and go, ah. And remember, even back when we were doing our monomial powers of I, I'd say, when in doubt, you could write that thing out as many times as the exponent tells you. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write 3 minus 5i twice. And just a little bit ago, I was holding up my fingers. That's a binomial times a binomial. I'm going to do distribution. The first one times both, and the second one times both. So that's going to get me 4 terms. Not as simple as just like bang, bang, and you only get 2 terms, okay? You have to get all 4 of them. So first one times both, second one times both. So I'm going to get equal to here 9 for 3 times 3, minus 15i, and then another minus 15i, and then plus 25i squared. Negative 1. So this would be negative 25 technically. Okay, so now this would give me, if I combine my like terms, it would give me negative 16 and a negative 30i. Hope my math is correct because I am, yeah, looks good. Just as capable of making mistakes as the rest of us. This next one, I'm going to go to the next slide here so I have a little more room. Okay, it's the same problem. I just want a little more room to do it. And that's because I'm sort of merging the 2 concepts together. I'm going to do a multiplication problem with the binomial on the right. Okay, I'm going to have to do this problem first because it's got an exponent and I need to take care of it first. Okay, then I'm going to be able to subtract it. But before I subtract, I'm going to have to push the negative through. So lots of things going on here. Remember how I said before I kind of like to let this guy ride until we have it all straightened out? Well, that's what's going to happen here again. And we already did this one on the previous slide, so I'm just going to cross it out so you don't jot it down. Okay? So I'm going to drop this guy down. He's not doing anything. But I do notice there's nothing ahead of it. So these parentheses are really not even doing any good. So I'm just going to make it negative 1 minus 2i. And I'm getting rid of the parentheses because there's nothing that needs pushed in here. And it's not multiplying anything else, so we're Gucci. It's just negative 1 minus 2i. Over here, like I said, I don't want to do this math here first because I have an exponent I have to take care of. So I'm going to write this out twice, and I'm going to do my math for that. I'm going to drop down this negative 1, right? And I'm going to do my math for this now. And it's a binomial times a binomial, so I'm going to get 4 terms. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 4 is 4i. And another 4i. And then I have a positive 16i squared. So this would be negative 16 really is what that equals right there. So now I'm going to combine some stuff in here and kind of condense this up so it's not so big here. So 1 minus 16 would be negative 15 plus 8i. And it's still in parentheses because I said I was going to let this negative kind of ride down here, right? So I'm going to have to push that in. Remember, I'm subtracting the answer to all of this. So negative 1 minus 2i. So now this is really going to be plus 15 and minus 8i. Okay, so now combine these like terms. So the 15 and the negative 1 is 14, and I'm doing the real part first. Those are the real parts. And that negative 2 and that negative 8 would make negative 10i. Okay, now there are some other ways to do this problem, but if you follow it this way and do the exponent first, you will not, I repeat, you will not mess this problem up. A lot of kids will like to try and do this. They'll take this distribute first. And what happens is they have a negative 1 and a negative 4i that they multiply by another negative 1 and a negative 4i. And if you remember back on this other slide, I was talking about this 2 right here on this other slide. It doesn't distribute to both of these things, right? It doesn't go to the 9 minus 2i and that one. It would only go to the first one if you really wanted to do it. So that's why I suggest in this problem to wait on distributing. Take care of this exponent first, right? It's PEMDAS. Do the exponent first. Simplify the guts, the inside, and then distribute the negative 1. And you know, some people distribute it here, but I like to wait until it's cleaned up and it's just a little bit less of a mess to deal with. Okay, so there's a lot going on here, but you know what? It should be some review from Algebra 1. Really, the only new thing is that right here. I want you to try these 4 questions in your notebook. Pause it, try it. I mean, even if you like do one at a time and check your math and, you know, come back, go ahead, do it, pause it, pause it. So you ready? Ready for the answer? Screen share time. There they are. So again, try your very best. This last one here, I kind of cheated a little bit since this was all the same problem right here. I just took the answer from this and chopped it down in there so I didn't have to do all that work over again. It was sort of a way for me to make this a little bit faster problem. So please let me know if you need something. We're going to get tons of practice at this throughout the week, but you're going to have to be patient. The only way you're going to get any good at this is if you put in the time. And remember, take care of exponents first. Wait on distribution when you have to do like a binomial times a binomial. Do that first so you can distribute at the end. Let that guy ride. And any subtraction that you need to do, watch out for that. Sometimes you end up with subtraction that you have to distribute after you do a multiplication problem. That is still essential, because think of subtraction as multiplying by a negative 1 to an answer. So those are all really important things to watch out for. Basic algebra atrocities, if you make them, you got to figure out where you're going to make them. You got to try, you got to take risks, okay? And it's okay to get things wrong right now. So please, please, please keep yourself organized, write it down. So when you come back into class and I can check some of this stuff, I can see where your mistakes were and we can have that dialogue back and forth. All right, later.